The most dangerous lie you have been told is that you need to improve. Work harder, think more positively, build better habits, stay disciplined, fix what is broken. The entire personal development industry is built on this premise that the version of you standing here today is worth preserving, worth upgrading, worth keeping as the foundation for something better. Machiavelli disagreed, not with discipline, not with effort, but with the foundation itself. In The Prince, he wrote something most modern readers overlook. He did not advise rulers to become better men. He advised them to become different men entirely, to shed the identity that made them vulnerable and reconstruct something the world had no framework for anticipating. Not improvement, replacement. And the reason this distinction matters is that improvement keeps the structure intact. The reactions, the patterns, the emotional triggers, the predictable behaviors, improvement makes them slightly better. Replacement eliminates them and builds from nothing. One is renovation, the other is demolition, followed by construction. You cannot build a fortress on a compromised foundation. You cannot become uncontrollable by polishing the version of yourself that was designed to be controlled. Here are 8 rules for psychological replacement, the kind that strips everything predictable from you and rebuilds something the world cannot anticipate, cannot read, and cannot manage. Rule 1. Kill the script. Before you made a single conscious decision about who you were, the decision had already been made for you. Your family handed you a character, your environment handed you a tone, your failures edited your confidence, your past became the excuse you keep recycling. And now, every time you say, "This is just who I am," you are reading from a script you never chose and have never questioned. This is the first thing Machiavelli would have you understand. Identity that was installed can be uninstalled. You were not born predictable. You were trained into predictability through repetition, through reward, through the slow pressure of being shaped into something the people around you could manage. The moment you treat that identity as fixed, you have accepted their ceiling as your own. The Stoics understood this at a different level. Epictetus, a man who began his life as a literal slave, wrote that no one can ever be truly enslaved who understands the distinction between what is within their control and what is not. Your past is not within your control. Your next decision is. Those are not the same thing, and treating them as if they are is the primary mechanism through which average is maintained. Killing the script does not mean thinking differently. Thinking differently without acting differently is philosophy without consequence. It means acting against the pattern before your mind can negotiate you back into it. When the familiar hesitation rises, you move. When the conditioned reaction appears, you pause. When your history tells you what you will do next, you do the opposite. Not once, but until the override becomes the new default. My past has no authority over my next decision. None. Rule 2. Refuse the role. Every room you walk into has already prepared a character for you, not consciously, not with malice, but through the accumulated weight of every interaction you have had with the people in it. They have categorized you. They have formed expectations. And without noticing, you began adjusting your behavior to match what they predicted, speaking the way they expected, reacting the way they recognized, staying inside boundaries they set, without ever saying a word. This is how roles form, not through force but through repetition. And once you accept a role, even unconsciously, you are no longer acting from freedom. You are performing from expectation. That is where personal power disappears entirely. Machiavelli was precise about this. A prince who allowed his subjects to define him had already surrendered the most important ground, the ground of unpredictability. And unpredictability is not a character flaw, it is a strategic position. When no one can anticipate you, no one can prepare for you. When no one can prepare for you, you cannot be managed. The way you refuse the role is not through confrontation. That would simply replace one predictable reaction with another. You do it through deliberate disruption of the pattern. You pause where they expect speed. You say less where they expect more. You stay calm where they expect emotion. These are not tricks. They are the slow removal of every handle they had on your behavior, one interaction at a time. I perform for no one. Rule 3. Sever the attachments. Attachment is the most invisible of chains, and it extends far beyond people. You are attached to outcomes, to being understood, to validation from specific sources, to the recognition you believe your effort deserves, to opinions that match yours, to results that arrive on schedule, to the approval of people who may not deserve the power they have over your state of mind. Every attachment is a pressure point, and the person who knows your pressure points does not need to force you. They simply apply pressure to the right place at the right moment and watch you do exactly what they needed you to do. This is manipulation at its most sophisticated level. Not the obvious kind, but the kind that operates through dependency. If you need agreement, you soften your position to avoid conflict. If you need recognition, you perform instead of execute. If you need a particular outcome, you can be rushed. And the moment you can be rushed, you can be misled. Marcus Aurelius addressed this in the Meditations with a clarity that has not been improved upon in 1900 years. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The goal was not detachment from life, but detachment from the need for life to arrange itself according to preference. Engagement without dependency. That distinction is everything. Anything you cannot walk away from has partial control over you. The goal is not to walk away from everything. The goal is to hold everything lightly enough that losing it does not shake the foundation. I need nothing outside myself to remain stable. Rule 4. Stop broadcasting your intentions. The moment you announce what you are building, you have weakened it. Your mind releases a small reward the instant you share a goal with someone who acknowledges it. That acknowledgement registers in the brain as partial progress, as if the action has already begun. The urgency to actually do the work quietly diminishes. You have spent part of the motivation before accomplishing anything with it, but the internal mechanism is only half of the problem. The external one is worse. When you share your direction with people who are not fully invested in your outcome, you hand them a target. You give competitors time to prepare. You invite opinions that introduce doubt into something that was previously clean. You create an audience for your failure if execution falls short of the announcement. Machiavelli wrote in the Discourses on Livy that the man who reveals his plans before they are complete has armed his enemies before he has armed himself. The insight was military in context. It applies without modification to every domain of modern life. Information is not something to distribute, it is something to control. And the less people know about where you are going, the less interference they can place on the path. Move, build, arrive, in that order. The result will announce itself with a force that no explanation could have matched. My work speaks, I do not. Rule 5. Train in private. The strongest version of any person is built where no one is watching. This is not a popular idea, because transformation has become something people want witnessed. They want the effort acknowledged. They want the struggle validated. They want someone to confirm that what they are doing is real. And that need for an audience is precisely what keeps their development shallow. When your training is visible, it changes. You begin to prioritize what looks impressive over what actually builds capacity. You choose actions that earn reactions over actions that create depth. Slowly, without noticing, your growth becomes performance. And performance, by definition, is designed for someone else. Real skill is built in silence, through repetition that no one applauds, through failure that no one sees, and correction that no one encourages. The Stoics called this indifference to external judgment, the ability to act without requiring the response to your action as evidence that the action had value. In private training, that indifference becomes a discipline. There is no audience to perform for, so everything must actually work. The feedback is internal, the standard is yours, and the results, when they finally emerge, carry a weight that practiced performance never achieves. Build where no one can see you. Emerge where no one expected you. I need no witness to do the work. Rule 6. Think in systems. Most people respond to events. A strategist studies the architecture that produces them. When you only react to what is visible, you are always late. You are solving consequences instead of eliminating causes. You are responding to the output of a system while the system itself continues producing the same results, uninterrupted, invisible, and fully intact. A system thinker asks a different question. Not what happened, but what structure keeps producing this? Not how do I fix this situation, John, but what pattern am I operating inside? Because once you identify the system, a single adjustment at the right point changes every outcome that follows. Machiavelli never analyzed isolated events. He studied the conditions that made certain outcomes inevitable. The structures of loyalty, of fear, of incentive that produced predictable human behavior regardless of individual intention. That structural understanding is what separated his thinking from everyone who came before him. You apply this the same way. You stop reacting to single behaviors and start identifying the pattern they belong to. You stop chasing individual problems and start redesigning the system that generates them. Over time, this habit transforms how you move through every domain because you are no longer behind the events. You are ahead of the structure. I do not react to events, I study systems. Rule 7. Guard access. Your attention is not unlimited. Treat it as if it were. Most people leave access to themselves completely open. Anyone can message them, anyone can interrupt them, anyone can demand their time, shift their focus, or pull them into conversations that cost more than they return. And because it happens in small increments, it rarely registers as the significant drain it actually is. The cumulative effect is that their priorities are constantly interrupted, their momentum repeatedly broken, and their standards slowly lowered to match whatever they have allowed inside their environment. This is how average is maintained without force, not through any single disruption, but through the relentless accumulation of all of them together. Machiavelli was explicit that the prince who made himself too accessible undermined his own authority, not because access is inherently wrong, but because availability without selectiveness signals that your time has no particular value. And things that signal no value are treated accordingly. Guarding access is not withdrawal, it is selection. You decide what enters your attention and at what cost. You stop responding to everything and start responding only to what is worth the response. Every yes to something that does not serve you is a no to something that does. My access is a privilege, not an assumption. Rule 8. Become unreadable. The moment someone can predict how you will respond, they no longer need to negotiate with you. They can simply arrange the conditions that produce the response they want. Most people are broadcasting constantly. Their face reacts before they speak. Their tone shifts when something affects them. Their body gives information to anyone paying attention. They believe they are in control because they have not said anything. They do not realize how much has already been communicated. This predictability is not a character flaw, it is a trained pattern. And like all trained patterns, it can be replaced. The replacement requires one core discipline, the gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, you decide. Without that gap, the pattern decides for you. Machiavelli described the ideal prince as someone who could appear consistent while remaining adaptable, who could be read as stable while pursuing directions others could not calculate. The surface was controlled, the interior was strategic. That combination made him effectively ungovernable from the outside. You achieve this through controlled expression, not suppression, expression that is chosen rather than automatic. You respond when responding serves a purpose. You reveal what is necessary and nothing more. You remain steady in situations where the expected response is visible disruption. Over time, the consistency of your control becomes its own uncertainty for everyone around you. They cannot find the pattern, and without the pattern, they cannot find the pressure point. I decide what I reveal and when I reveal it. 8 rules. 1 architecture. Underneath all of them, you are not improving. You are replacing. The version of you built for predictability, for approval, for the comfort of people who benefited from your limitations. That version has no future in the life you are building. Not because it was wrong, but because it was constructed by others for purposes that were never yours. Machiavelli did not believe in the gradual reform of what was already broken. He believed in the cold clarity of replacement, in the willingness to end what needed to end without negotiation, without sentiment, and without delay. The work begins exactly where the old version reaches its limit. Decide, replace, begin.